Welcome to City Life Online, as we once again took our gathering on this 5th Saturday and we hit the road to tackle multiple service opportunities right here in our region. Today we helped host Thrive Peninsula's Food Pantry, a pantry that served over 37,000 shoppers and distributed over 900,000 pounds of food last year. We also came alongside Echo Family Care Partners, packaging and organizing thousands of diapers for their monthly distribution, as they distributed over 900,000 diapers in 2025. And lastly, we returned to the Aqueduct Boys and Girls Club to beautify that property and bless those precious kids. It's a simple way that we mobilize to make Jesus easy to find every 5th Saturday. And if this Saturday you're visiting us online or you've just recently found a home with us, scan the code right there on the screen, because we would love to connect with you. Because whether it's here at City Life or at another of many amazing churches in the region, God has a family of faith that He wants you to call home, and we'd love to help you find it. And lastly, we want to thank you for faithfully giving. Lives are being practically helped and spiritually impacted both in the 757 and throughout the 4 corners of the globe through your giving. Because your giving doesn't just fuel the ministry we do here at City Life or around the 757 on 5th Saturdays, but missionaries and organizations that we support all over the world. So thank you again for your generosity always. But tonight, we have a treat in store as we continue our 5th Saturday sermon series. And Pastors Fred and Vanessa host an enlightening conversation about parenting and leading our families from those early stages and through every season. But let's listen in together.
Well, welcome City Life Church to another part of our series, which we call 5th Saturday Conversations. And so we have just fallen in love with this format where we are inviting people that we know and love and trust, just like we did for marriage. Again, today, not only do we have people here that we know and love and trust, but people who are dear friends to our hearts and to this community here at our church. And so we thought, as a follow-up to marriage, a great conversation to pick up with would be one on parenting. And so we have invited all of us to enter into this conversation because we're all at different seasons of life in our parenting, with being empty nesters and then on down the line with ages. And so maybe what we can do to start out, why don't you, we'll tell the number of kids we have and their ages, right? So Vanessa, you want to give ours?
Yep. We have 3 children, and they are 25, 23, and 21.
Yes.
They're done. They're gone. What are their names again? No, just kidding.
Yeah, we have 3 children. They are 6, 8, and 10.
Yep.
Same for me.
And we have 1, and she is 2.
Going on 32.
Leo, yes. Honorary member of the staff team here
That's
at City
right.
Life Church.
Yeah.
Tell us too, maybe give us this too. How long have you been a part of City Life Church?
Yeah, we've been coming to City Life since 2013, so I think about 12 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started to come into City Life around 2013, 14.
Yep.
Been here since then, and then
Came in end of 2019.
yeah.
2019.
So tiptoeing into COVID.
Okay.
Yep, right before.
Yeah.
So our goal tonight, obviously, is to not give everybody everything that they need to know, right, about parenting. We do have a class for that we teach here based on the Growing Kids God's Way curriculum. It's part of our workshop mechanism here for life groups. And so we just finished part 1 for parenting. So in the spring, we'll be offering part 2. And so people will have an opportunity to jump in on that, even if they weren't part of part 1,
Absolutely.
right? They can jump in part 2 and then do part 1 on the back end. And so we thought we would pick. We've been teaching this class for
Since Derek was about 18 months old.
Yeah.
Is when we were
And he's
introduced,
25.
not teaching it. We were introduced to the
we
material
have
as
been
parents,
in-
as new parents.
either a participant in class or teaching in class for
25
years.
Yep.
And so, so you can. We're big fans, right, of this, and we feel like we have 3 human beings that are walking around who are a testament, right, to these principles. And
Yeah.
and so, one of our passions in life is that we want to share that with
sure.
with other people.
Yeah.
And it takes intentionality to shape a child, and that's part of the responsibility we've been given. As we were praying together before this, we talked about how God picked each of us for our children.
Yeah.
The children in your home, He picked you, right, to live in your home, and with that comes a very sacred responsibility. And so let's start with this first concept, where one of the things that we observe that we feel like that we see a huge mistake that parents make is that they want to be their child's friend, and they orient through friendship instead of leadership. And so I would say that's one of the key principles for us in parenting, is that your goal is not to be your child's friend. Your goal is to be your child's leader. Friendship with your child comes much later in life. But early on, you're posturing yourself as I'm an authority figure, a loving authority figure, most certainly, right? And with affection. They should relate to you as this person is leading me in this life, and this person's not my buddy. So talk to us a little bit about how, when you got introduced to the Growing Kids God's Way curriculum or some of these philosophies, was it a pivot for you, not a pivot for you? Is that what you observed growing up? Was it different than the home that you grew up in? So talk to us a little bit about that, how that concept, when you heard it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it was very familiar to me the way I grew up. So I think the default for all parents is I'll raise my kids like my parents raised me, right, wrong, or indifferent.
Yeah.
But growing up, my mom really led that way, and I feel like did a really good job at that, at the loving but firm leader, very clear. Mom is in charge. Not a friend, not a buddy, but absolutely in charge, an authoritative figure.
Yeah.
So I think when we started learning that class, I was like, oh, this feels familiar.
Yeah.
I already understand how this kind of looks like. So,
Yeah. I would say I also grew up in as my mom would say, I'm not one of your little friends' household. So, definitely.
That's great. I can hear her say that.
So it's like I definitely understood the authority structure and the leadership, but I also have friends who, as I grew up, I experienced different ones, and there may have been things that made me question if it needed to be that way.
Yeah.
As you see different things and different outcomes of kids, right? So I think this was in the class. It was a way to kind of like ground it in to George's point, right? It might have been a default because of how I grew up, but maybe feeling a little more principled or like grounded in why, like not just because I feel like I'm a decent person and my mom, and family were a part of that, but because like I actually understand how to do it. And then maybe when I want to vary from that, that the class was helping teach some of those principles about how I want to pivot if I do.
No, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, I think understanding that you are supposed to lead your child and not be their friend, particularly in the early years, reorients how you interact with them. And it's permission giving for you to assert your authority, because when that's new, you guys are new parents, new-ish. And so how did that feel for you because at first you're just enjoying your baby. Then at some point they assert their personhood and you realize, oh, I have to, I have to disciple this child, I have to raise this child. And so, I remember having moments where I felt like, oh, no one's going to give me permission. I'm the mom. I have to give permission,
Yeah.
So how do you find that happening even right now because of Cleo's age? You're still, guys, I would say you're still stepping into the fullness of that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think, we kind of over the last year or so, we have moments where we turn to each other and we're like, whoa, it's happening. Like it's right now, it's not tomorrow. Right. It's happening. It's happening. And so, I think there definitely have been moments of overwhelm, just realizing like we are in it and it's not, but at the same time realizing that, the needs are different every day, every week, every month, every year. And so, giving yourself grace too, to understand you are in the leadership role, but everything is changing so quickly. And so I think things like this are great because we're preparing ourselves. And I think that's what a lot of parents feel is not feeling prepared. You go through all the labor and delivery, classes, and then you have a baby.
That's it.
And
there's no manual.
Right.
Comes with them.
Come home with this thing.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's
It's interesting that when you master one quick season, like kids change seasons, right? They're like what you're saying, their needs change so quickly. As soon as you become comfortable with, sometimes even before that, but there will be times too where you actually become comfortable. And as soon as you feel like I might know what I'm doing, it's going to change. And it's not until you're done raising them that you feel like maybe I know what I'm doing. Not that you even feel that. I don't know if I've ever felt that.
Yeah.
So God is in that design, right? So I think part of that is making us desperate for him.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to share is that having multiple children, I think has helped me understand my role to be their leader, because now I'm not just leading this one human, I've got to lead a group of children. And the more I am their leader, and really understand that concept, I think that just our home runs in order, right? I'm not shifting who I am, my personality, my expectations, what responsibilities I expect out of them, things like that, depending on the kid. It just is the ethos of our home. That mom and dad are the leaders and we are the followers. But part of that is that we have to be showing them by example how we want them to be led. So we're not going to ask them to follow us in a way that we're not already walking.
Right.
Whereas friends, I think, are more like influencers. And as leaders, we are teaching them, this is the way we want you to go. Follow our example for how we believe that this should happen. And so, speaking, the shift happened for me the more children we had, where it was we have to have this structure in our home where it's true authority and children are able, and it's not an heavy-handed authority.
Right.
It's you can trust mom and dad
That's right.
to lead you in this way.
I was just going to say that I think some people feel like they have to choose between leadership and friendship. And I would say leadership is actually the bridge to friendship, because when you're leading your children in those first 10, 12, 15 years, you are establishing the most deep-seated trust there is, so that eventually you become their safe space, right? And you've earned the right. When all these voices are competing for their attention, your voice rises out of that, but it's based on the leadership. And I see a lot of parents everywhere I go, in stores, anytime I'm in public, where parents they're not asserting their authority, in my opinion, in a way that a 3-year-old needs their, authority. They need to just have clear lines of demarcation, and it's okay to say no. And what have you guys experienced with that?
I think I can answer what I think you're asking. in this way, I see the fruit of the leadership in our home by the way our children interact with us. And much to Amy's chagrin, the children ask a lot of, hey, mommy, can I? Hey, daddy, can I? Can I have a snack now? Is it time to play now? The 6-year-old is always asking me, is this an okay word to say? Even if it's a regular word he doesn't know. Daddy, can I say celebration? Yes, that is a fine word to say. Well, what does it mean? Right? He's asking all these things because he knows that he needs permission.
That's really good.
To use language that he doesn't understand yet, because he knows the rule is we don't use words we don't understand because they might be bad words or whatever. But at the end of the day, sometimes that gets tiring, but we have to remind ourselves, this is because of the fruit that they see us as leaders in the household, and they look to us as the parents and the leaders of, am I okay to do this? Am I allowed to do this?
We have the answers for them, and they can trust us that we're going to lead them to good places. I think.
Yeah, and if they sense exasperation from us, then what we're saying to them is, you're bothering me, right? And then they're going to stop seeking your direction, right, and your leadership. And so I wanted to throw in too, for people that might be watching, we're not saying that it's leadership without the bonds of affection.
Totally.
We're not saying that there is a bond and an affection and a feeling that you have as a parent that's indescribable, right? It's absolutely indescribable. That's driven by a deep, deep sense of love and loyalty.
Yeah.
So we're not negating the importance of that.
Yeah.
We're just saying the way that you relate to your child as a primary source of affection is your responsibility is to lead them in this life.
Yeah.
And if you orient as a friend, then you will begin to subconsciously relate to them as a friend. And that's where you begin to spill over into deferring to their preferences, giving them a voice in decision-making before they should have it. Right. You begin to pursue their happiness instead of their well-being, right? Yeah. Because we orient as friends in life to people. Yeah. And those concepts just, we intuitively defer subconsciously within ourselves. And then all of a sudden that takes us where we're going to get to in a minute, not quite, but that's where you end up in a child-centered parenting philosophy, is if you're posturing as a friend to your child, right? Instead of a leader.
And I think that's what I was going to say too. Like, I think, there is this like child discovery, right? Like figuring out who your kid is and what it means. And like, we thought like, oh, Cleo, we sat her down, in one day in a chair, and she was just quiet. And we were like, oh, she just wanted alone time. She's going to be like this, like, introspective, baby. And absolutely, like, no. She's like, just as blabbermouth as me, loud, as inquisitive in knowing people as Madeline. So it's like, oh, we thought we knew who you were, but you are actually exactly who we are. But so it's like there's this moment where I remember Madeline was, jokingly frustrated about Costco not having the right granola, and our daughter was like, come here, mommy, come here. And she gave her a hug. Cause she I was like, oh, she's picking that up from us, right? Like she's seeing how we're modeling that. But then, but there also is that moment where it's like, she also is like, oh, but I actually want these 18 things from Costco. And it was like, actually, no, we still, so it's like, even if there are things that they kind of pick up from us from how we model our relationship with each other or how we interact with people, there is still this inclination of trying to figure out where the boundaries are that I have learned are necessary as a family, as a father, as a parent, but also too, they may be different than how I grew up. So my family was very, it takes a village. So, I had designated second moms in different places. I always think affectionately of this lady, like Miss Jasper at the church I had growing up. I mean, she was like the warden at the church. And as you got older, you understood that it was out of love. Yep. But and I didn't respect her leadership until, obviously, in all honesty, so I was too old. Yeah. So I've kind of grown to understand how also these spaces kind of play that and kind of inform, how I want to approach that leadership. There may be, there's still aspects of village, parenting here, but maybe in a way that how I dictate it. I think before it was just people do what they know to be best, but now I kind of understand that oh no, I kind of set the tone for what is best for my child because I understand them and know them.
Yeah. And then part of it too, that we'll jump to the next one is Vanessa talked earlier about seasons. It's also, remember, we're always preparing for the season that's coming. Right, and so this idea of establishing your relationship with your child when they're really little is that my voice of authority is the voice of authority in your life. That's God put me in your life to be a voice of authority in you. You can trust me. I always have your best interests at heart, right? The stakes then are about getting the toys in the toy box, right? Or putting on the right pair of shoes or the right pair of socks. When they become teenagers, right, the stakes are high, with the decisions that they're making and the choices that they're making. And so it's remembering this idea of if you postpone the work you're supposed to do here,
right,
you're not going to have the voice that they need you to have when the stakes are really high.
Right.
We say this to our kids all the time, to learn that they learn our no. Like when we say no,
That's so good.
that causes you to stop and that you can hear our no. And we use the example of like crossing the street. If you hear mommy say no or stop, you stop right away.
Yeah.
And then I've had many conversations with them about, why do you think that's so important? Not just because I don't want you to run into the street, but because you trust my voice. That
So
when I
good.
say
That's
no,
really good, Amy.
you immediately stop.
Yeah.
Not because I'm holding you back, but because
Yeah.
I'm keeping you safe. And that voice, I think, matters and translates into having a 10-year-old now who's asking bigger questions about life, who's heading into adolescence and teenage years. God help us. And yeah,
On the
and
way to RC.
On the way to RC next year, where she'll be hanging out with bigger kids.
Yeah.
She needs to know that we say no not out of being
really good.
unfun or controlling over controlling her, but that because we have her best interest at heart. My number one phrase with our kids is, I always say, what's mommy's number one job? And they'll say, to keep us safe. And that
really
translates to physical safety,
Yep.
spiritual safety,
Yep.
emotional safety, and I can have that conversation with them. All I have to do is introduce, what's my number one job? To keep us safe. All right, let's talk about it. I'm not saying no because I don't like you and want to make your life miserable.
Right.
I'm saying no because I'm keeping you safe. So
That's a great segue into what we're talking about next, which is the child-centered parenting. So why don't you give us a definition of what is child-centered parenting?
Yeah, I would say that child-centered parenting is a home that revolves around the needs and wants of a child versus what's best for the family as a whole. And the focus of parents that are producing a child-centered home is the happiness of their child versus what their child needs. And those are very different things in those formative first several years of life. What the child wants is another snack, and what they need is to be told, no, right, you've had enough, or you can have an apple, And so there's this constant competition all day long, all the time. And parents get tired, admittedly, and for good reason. They get exhausted. There's no time limit on it. It's 24/7, we know that. I always tell parents it's the hardest job you'll ever do. And if it's not hard, you're not doing it right.
that's so true.
It is the hardest job because you're never off the clock. So the idea of understanding your role as a leader and an authority, and also your, I think, divine responsibility to disciple the heart of your child means that one of the examples I use in the biblical parenting class is, instead of putting the plastic pool underneath the high chair for the 2-year-old that's learning to eat because you want to save the carpet and it's just easier to clean up and you can go hose it down in the driveway. That makes a lot of sense. I get it.
Somebody's watching this right now
As they feed
at
their
the
child
dinner
in the
table,
pool.
and they've just pulled out the plastic pool and put it into the high chair.
The tarp, the whatever it is, right? Rather than take the time to understand, this is such a practical example. It's never going to be convenient. It's never going to be neat. It's never going to be easy. You guys know, you've taught 3 kids.
That's right.
It starts now. It's time to teach your child. If your child is learning how to hold a fork, it's time to teach them then that they don't throw food with the fork and they don't put the fork in their hair, right? Like you have to actually teach them everything. And I think a lot of parents, when they step into the realization of that, they, without any ill will in their heart, without them being lazy or anything like that, they begin to cultivate a child-centered home because they're tired and exhausted and it's unrelenting. And so really stepping into the mandate of the home not being about the happiness of the child, but the well-being of the child, and then understanding too that they have to be a part of a greater whole, talking about a family. So
that reminds me of something you taught us. Was you always said you wanted your children to be a joy to others. And I think that starts with this kind of parenting.
Yes, it does.
right? So when you're like repeating yourself for the 15th time with your toddler, like I just had to remind myself the goal is that I want my child, there are many things, but one of them is I want them to be a joy to others when they're in somebody else's home and they're invited over to eat. And so this matters now because in 5 years from now, I want them to be a joy to others. I want them to be welcomed into other people's homes and to be sent home with they had good manners, all the things. And so that matters when you keep the larger goal in mind. You guys are in the thick of it right now. I could say that like with our 6, 8, and 10-year-old, we're seeing a lot of the fruit of really honing that in the 18-month, 2 years, 3 years, range. I was like, pedal to the metal, this matters, we're not giving up on it. I think my children, I think they do enjoy being around other people, and I think other people enjoy being around
Your
them.
kids are the best.
Because we really did that work on the front end. It really matters. In the moment, you don't think it does. On the back end, it really does matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I think turning to child-centered parenting has come from so much trauma, of the child not being considered at all,
that's so good, Madeline.
One thing that we talked about when we were going through the parenting part 1 class was when we were talking about the child's private world, right? And so that means basically everyone has a private world that they are only willing to share, with the people who they are willing to share it with, right? Invite only, right? And so, we were talking about that concept. I was like, the idea of a child having a private world is so new to so many people, right? Because, before it was, your children shouldn't talk unless they're spoken to. They're in the back room. They're not a part of, all of those things, right? Seen and not heard, all those things. And anyway, so I think that child-centered parenting
was a reaction to that.
That's
exactly, really good, Madeline.
And so I think especially for our generation of parents, like, there is this desire to include the child and to let them explore and let them become themselves and all of those things, and that none of that is bad, right?
Absolutely.
But it has definitely taken a turn of then it's only you and it's not the family, right?
Yep.
And I think too that's combined also with the individualism of our society in particular, right?
Yes.
Because it's not about the family, it's about the person. And so I think, in societies that are much more communal, it's not as much of a child-centered focus. Because there is this idea of it's about the community. So
Jordan, sorry, I was gonna have Jordan share like how that shows up. Like, how do the kids become not the center but see us? Like, how do we display that for the kids? Like time with like our time at night together, or if we're having a conversation, they're not allowed to interrupt, that kind of thing.
Right. So you're
Teach us, Sensei.
Well,
Thanks for volunteering.
You're right in the middle of it.
I just think he's done this
I
really
think
modeled this well for us.
I understand what you're asking now. The fact that the child is not the center of attention.
Yes.
Yeah. You taught us the concept of having adult
Talk time.
when you got home from work. And so I would say several times a week we choose to have uninterrupted time
in front of them.
In a public space, in the kitchen, in the living room. And the phrase that Amy will use when they want to come talk is that you're not free to interrupt right now. I get 15 minutes alone with Daddy. You guys get a lot of other time, and right now this is our time to talk. And I think that's one intentional way that is peppered in with a whole day of the family is more important than the individual.
Yes,
Team
good.
Kimball.
Right.
Yep.
And that there is special time where the focus is entirely on you, Natalie or Ellie or Leland, to fill that cup, because kids do need your undivided attention.
Yes.
Floodgates, they crave it. But they also need to understand, which plays into the role of leader, right?
Yep.
They need to understand that that you are a leader and that there are boundaries, right? Healthy boundaries. And that they see where they are in the order. And I think children feel, because I was a child, feel much more at ease and comfortable in a house where they know, I'm not the center of attention. I don't have to hold this family together. Someone else, a father and a mother, like, I know they got it. I can just sit back and enjoy the ride, and mom and dad are going to take care of everything.
And I'm glad you brought this up too, because what we're not saying is that there should not be moments in the child's life where they are the center of the world.
Right.
They should be.
Yes.
There are moments where they should be made to feel like the whole world revolves around you. But you step into that moment and you step back out of it, right? Because for too many children, that's the only world that they know.
And they should have unfettered access when they're babies, and and you just begin to introduce it.
Yep.
Even just now, at Cleo's age, you're just starting to introduce the idea of, don't interrupt mommy and daddy, we're gonna talk for 32 seconds, right? We're gonna get your juice, and literally when I'm done answering this question, you're not asking them to wait 15 minutes. You guys introduced that when they were little, and then eventually, I wanna make sure as people are listening to this, they understand, eventually you just pepper that into a home that actually does all the things to celebrate, nurture, and your children.
Because they feel safe that okay, I don't get them for 15 minutes, but they're going to come back to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's and that comes with this whole being their leader and being someone that they can trust. So I can say this to you, and you don't feel neglected. You know that this isn't your time, but you're going to get your time.
Your needs are going to get met.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's all
I would say one of the ways I would think about it too is that we worked hard to raise children who understood that they mattered, that they had value, that they were special, that they were unique, that there was not another human being that's ever lived, who's ever going to live, that's going to be just like them, right? And so Imago Dei, all these concepts of the uniqueness of the individual, the value of the individual, right? And so we worked really hard to instill that, right, in our children, but we wanted to instill that in their children, that as a person who is uniquely priceless and valuable, you are part of a bigger world that does not exist to serve you and meet your every need.
Yeah.
That you are uniquely valuable and special, right? And that God has put you in this world to have an impact on this world.
That's right.
But this world does not exist to cater to your every need. Right. And so there's a healthy tension there, if that makes sense. So you want your child to have a sense of self-worth, right? That's unconquerable.
Absolutely.
But you want them to walk into the world with this unconquerable sense of self-worth. I'm here to fulfill a purpose. And that purpose is to touch that world in a meaningful way. So
no, and that's a real thing. And even like the let go of that. Like I remember we serve a lot, particularly in like music and tech. So, I actually took pride in having Cleo, worship with me as I'm doing sound or whatever. Like it was like this instilling of, something that's really important to us, and to our faith, into her. And then I remember the first time I took her to the back and she stayed in the back, and I was like, cause it was this moment of oh man, she's not getting to do the thing that, how she, and then, but now we laugh because she'll lead other people to worship, and how she's growing in a space that's curated for her is able to further build upon what
when you say
we
take her
already
into the
instilled.
back, for people that don't understand,
Sorry,
you mean into childcare?
Into childcare, yeah. So
it's like you locked her in a closet.
no Harry Potter.
Somebody's at home calling CPS right now, right?
No Harry Potter. No, but no, taking her to Kid Life.
No,
and
that's so good,
and it was one
Jamal.
of those things where it's this is, focusing solely on her experience, and her being able to experience this in this space is making it about her, not necessarily about what God is building in her. So actually God is building more in her in her, helping these other jokers and other kids worship and whatnot. And we see it because she was going back there, and then we went to a conference, and she told these people weren't singing loud enough near us, so she like sing.
Yeah.
She started getting them to dance, and I'm like, oh, I feel calmer about the world because I think particularly in the ever evolving environment, I would say particularly, I feel like a lot of families feel now that like things are maybe changing faster than they remember them changing when they were growing up, or like, you kind of, there's a little bit of anxiety that I think builds up sometime about the world that your child is growing up in. And I'm always humbled by how God meets us like consistently in a demonstration from our child about how she's ready for the world that's coming to her. And that was one of those moments where I was like, oh, taking a step back and letting her, making the family the core part and not just her like enjoyment. Now I have this moment where we're at a worship conference and she's like encouraging these like random adults to like worship, dance, and sit down and pray. That I didn't prompt her to do this, she did it on her own. I'm like, oh, she's leading people in worship at like 18 months. So like she's ready for the world.
No, that's good.
It's like a faith thing as well.
I think to summarize that, I think one of the greatest gifts we can give our kids when we're talking about child-centered parenting, but just in raising them, is this idea of them being a meaningful, impactful part of something bigger than themselves. And I think a lot of people get that when it comes to community, school, and church, but it really starts in our homes.
So
that
good,
this
Vanessa.
home is for you and about you, and is the safest place you'll ever find, but it is not here to serve you and you alone.
You should really think about teaching a
You're
parenting
part
class.
of something. You're part of something bigger, and it
that's
does
so rich, right?
it does so much for their heart, for their imago Dei, for their sense of self, for their sense of self-esteem, caring for siblings or whoever is in their world, caring for their aunts, their uncle. Just this idea of being part of something bigger. It does nothing but add value, and a child-centered home without meaning to ends up robbing your child of that gift.
So rich.
And it's not reality, right? Like I am a part of I work at a large organization. Can anybody do my job better than me? I personally don't think so, through God's grace.
Right.
But also too, I know I am a part of,
you're
there's
part of
50 of
something
me
bigger.
at my job all doing the same thing in the best way that they know how, accomplishing a goal. So like, the world really isn't set up to focal around you. And even Jesus, who the world could have focused around, he didn't choose to do it that way either.
Jamal. So
But
good.
that trickles
Preach.
down into putting your laundry away and how you take a bath and how you, just all the things you have to teach your child.
Sharing, taking turns.
All the things that are just kind of the nuts and bolts of living together and doing life. When parents have that bigger perspective, they understand they're actually putting that in the heart of their child through those disciplines and practices and routines.
So just as a recap, if you're taking notes, what we're saying is leadership, not friendship, and then at all costs, do not create a child-centered home. And so we're going to take just a quick break, and then we're going to be back with you in just a minute.
A holy stewardship, a precious opportunity, a divine calling, a parent. Parenting isn't just about babysitting and potty training. It's not just about teaching them to ride a bike or tie a shoe. It isn't just about making lunches and brushing teeth. Parenting is about changing the world. It's about reminding our kids who they really are, children of God, born for His glory. So parents, let's remember that the most important meetings of your day aren't in a conference room or on a stage, but at the dinner table and at the bedside. Let's remember that there's no quality time without quantity time. That the most valuable thing is not what you leave for them, but what you leave in them. That every time they fall down, you have the responsibility and the privilege of lifting them back up. Remember that your kids don't need you to be popular, productive, and certainly not perfect. They need you to be present. And remember that every time you wipe away the tear on their cheek, you're giving them a glimpse of the day when God Himself will wipe away every tear forever. The The Bible tells us to train up a child in the way they should go, and even when they're old, they will not depart from it. So show them the way. Pray for their soul and give them your best, because God gave you to them.
Well, welcome back. We're so glad that you're sticking with us. As you can tell from that first segment, we're all big fans, right, of parenting, and one, because we feel like there are a few things in this world more sacred, right, than this, and then just the realization of it's part of God's design for the universe, right? This is part of how the order of the universe, and so we are participating, right, in how He created the human experience, right? And so part of that is realizing that this is one of the ways that God wanted us to experience meaning in this life, right? And so so let's pick up with the next one. So let's talk about discipline with encouragement.
Okay.
Because I heard you during the break talking about that, putting courage in the heart of your child. Yeah. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think when we talk about discipline, most of us default to discipline that are things that are corrective in nature, which are good. That's a whole bucket, right, of discipline, redirecting our kids, timeouts, different punishments that we enact that are in line with the crime, so to speak, right? But one of the things that was mind-blowing to me, and so I so appreciate to this day, intersected my parenting path, was this whole massive bucket called discipline with encouragement. The idea being that encouragement is putting courage into someone's heart for something. And so this idea of discipline with encouragement is giving your child the courage and the bravery and the ability to choose right in times of non-conflict so that they are prepared when it comes to do the right thing and make the right choice. And I think most of us know discipline with correction, discipline with consequences, and that should be a part of our parenting. If I had to pick, I would say it should be a 70-30, maybe split, maybe even 75-25, meaning that the larger percentage is discipline with courage, which means for parents, it's a ton of work because it's not prompted by your child misbehaving. It's literally all the times that you're with your child on your way to things.
Yeah, give us an example.
Setting your child up on the way to Target, what you expect of them that's age appropriate. So maybe they're 4 and you know that they're not free to ask for something at the checkout line, right? Or they're not free to ask that they want to get a new toy every time you go in a store that they did when they were 2, right? You've gotten them. So you're going to prep your 4-year-old by asking them open-ended questions, helping them remember all the things that they have to, they either have to sit in the cart or they have to hold the cart, right? They have to always stay where they're close to me. Like I had all these rules with my kids. And so depending on which child I was speaking with, I would make a game out of it. We would have sing-song when they were little about the rules. We would make a race about it. We would just have fun with it. So you're actually giving your child all the tools they need to like refresh their memory of what's expected, and then not have the excuse, right, that they didn't know, and preparing them to be successful in that moment. And that can be on the way to church, on the way to grandma's house, or anywhere. So the real bottom line there is parents have to do that heavy lifting. And I think, I believe truly that as parents, we are, this is a big one to put out there, but I believe this through and through. We are responsible to make sure that our children have the tools that they need to be successful in the environments that we bring them into.
Yes.
And if they're not able to handle it, then our responsibility is to remove them and make sure that they're then set up for success before we reintroduce them. So that's a whole thing.
Well, most families, what we would say, what we've observed is all their parenting is reactionary, right? I engage my child reacting to things that they're either doing or not doing. And that's a component of parenting. There's a part of that. But what we're saying is that should be the smaller part. All the other time should be proactively engaging my child in conversations.
Right. So how have you guys done that with your kids? Because you have 3 very different ages.
Yes. Yeah, I think it gets easier again in groups because now our whole group is going to this place. One of my favorite examples would probably be role playing around the dinner table.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, so they're getting to the age now where they're old enough to go over to a friend's house for dinner, sometimes even sleep over, where they're having multiple meals at this family's home. And so I will role play that, when your friends, so say we're sitting at this friend's house and I have just served you this meal and it's not your favorite meal. What is your face gonna say? Show me what your face is gonna say. Okay, what are you gonna say to the person who made you food? Thank you so much for this meal. And that comes with a lot of practice because Jordan's really good he taught our children to always thank the person who cooks for you. And so they say it now just automatically. So hopefully that's translating in other spaces. But so, okay, great. How much of your food do you think is polite enough to eat, even if it's not your favorite? And you will always say thank you and you will clear your plate, different things.
All the things.
Because I said, and why do you think that matters? Because we don't want to hurt the person's feelings, because we want them to feel appreciated, because they're doing a kindness to you, moral warehouse kind of stuff, which I know we're going to get to. But yeah, like the reason why that's important, not just because I told you to, because then I said, what about if they came to our house and how would you want them to act here and treat you if you made them a meal? And so, yeah, lots of role playing.
And you guys remember some of the games that you did or role playing that you did when your kids were like 3?
Little.
Because really, when they're that young, it's all games. I just remember being in the playroom and making games out of all the things I was trying to. We would have daddy be the kid, and then the 3-year-old would be the daddy or the mom, be the one giving the order. It was hilarious. So I don't know if you have any.
Fun.
Well, I don't have an example, but what you're bringing to my attention is it's not until you become an adult and parent your kids that you look back on your life and realize, oh, those were all things mom and dad did intentionally. And those are all the things we learned in those parenting classes. In a flash, like every moment of my childhood when I was like, mom was being mean, dad was making me like sweat out in the yard for 8 hours a day. Like they didn't need me to do any of that. They weren't mad that I did this thing. They were choosing to do that on purpose to instill character and honesty and all these
work ethic, all these things.
And a work ethic. And it wasn't until later I was like, oh, those were on purpose? I thought mom and dad were just born that way. I thought they were just born hard like that. And I was like, oh, no, those are on purpose.
Every decision, every conversation should be purposeful with your child. Like even just this trip we took home to see family over the holidays. Hey, when you're at grandma's house, how are we going to behave? What are some things you could do to be helpful? Just asking them prompting questions. Our kids are old enough now to respond with really good answers. They have language now, and they have experience. So this is it actually is getting more fun because we can guide them through these conversations back and forth rather than us just talking at them. So yeah, role playing is probably one of my favorite ways to discipline with encouragement.
So for you guys, I don't know if it's a new concept. I know you've recently gone through the first 8 or 9 weeks of the class. Tell me what was your reaction because we haven't actually gotten to that chapter yet. So we haven't talked about it in depth, but this idea
it made sense because I think one of those things is so at the Harris household, you know what I mean? Sundays are latte days because I work throughout the week, Madeline works throughout the week, but then also Saturday is kind of still an on day for us. So Sunday is kind of our main so it's all right, we make lattes. and Cleo gets a latte, but obviously not with coffee.
Come on,
you know, it's
that's
just like a
so
steamer
great.
with like some.
What time do you do that?
Hey, come slide. You know what I'm saying? Generally around 10. About 10 is when we getting started. But I remember before, I just was like, how funny would it be to make her one? But now it's kind of one of those things where like she expects it.
That's so good.
But now it's kind of like encouraging her about what it means to expect it. So like, hey, aren't we grateful that, Madeline's great about it. Like, aren't we grateful that daddy made you a latte and that you had one? And I know it's all gone, but wasn't that really great? Like, shouldn't we be thankful for this? So it's
Meanwhile, she's 2 years old yelling, coffee, coffee.
Coffee. And it's like, oh, okay. Like I see it but to your point though, I was almost like a bro dad to my younger siblings because I was so much older than them. And then I worked with kids for a long time. So I kind of had this mindset of like, oh yeah, I'm ready for this. And then you get there and you're like, whew, like they don't, like even with my brother and sister, even though they live with me, there was a love of like, I could just be like, this ain't my problem. You're your mama's child. You're your daddy's. I could say that. Or like with kids, like I'm like, oh, I'm helping their parents out when they get back home. But when it's yours and it's just like, oh, we are actually having a meltdown about like lattes right now that you're not even really, you don't even know what you have. You have to be intentional in that moment about like prepping her. So we've been better about prepping her for success early.
That's what I was gonna say is like, I think, we just in the last few months have just been really realizing how much you have to slow down. And it's so hard because life is so fast and so busy and you are just trying to manage and make it through the day. And I've realized there's so many times where we could be teaching, we could be observing why. I mean, there was something she did the other day and we thought she was acting badly and I was able to see from a distance, I was watching. And so I could see, I said, hey, Jamal, I think she actually was trying to do this. We thought she was misbehaving, but she was actually doing something else. But it was only because I was removed for a minute from the situation to slow down and watch and take in. And it's just really hard, but you, for the sake of your child and your relationship and your family, you have to do it.
You have to.
Because otherwise you will be going day to day, struggling, grinding, trying to figure it out. But if you slow down,
Right, and you don't want to just sling your child. If you begin to believe that you're responsible for the environment you put them in, you can't just show up anymore and put your 4-year-old in it or 3-year-old. You have to make sure that they're prepared to some degree. And that's a conviction that you develop, I think, as a parent, as you wrestle with these truths. And it makes a big difference in how you go about your day.
And you mentioned this off camera, and you all kind of alluded to it too. Like, it's kind of like we talked about it earlier, but like learning who they are and what it means. So like, I think there's just depths of like your children in the same way there's depths to us, and God like helps us explore that. Like, I think we learn more about ourselves and our relationship to God, and like, I'm really acting like I'm acting like a kid right now. Yeah. But then it's like, oh, but you understand me, you know what I was going to. And like for us, it's like, oh, like she actually is very, very invested in doing something right, and complete. So like if I'm changing the battery, she's changing the battery, and she will not, it doesn't matter if I'm like, you're going to time out, like until she puts the battery back in the way that she saw it assembled. Like so it's like, okay, how do we set her up for success? Like, how do we put things in place? Or how do we we talk about like with encouragement, so we're not always kind of like doing it from a negative connotation. Right. Like, how do I actually set the room up so that you don't drop the battery every 5 minutes, so I'm not fussing at you for taking 20 minutes to put, what can we change about how we're setting you up, knowing who you are so that you can be more successful?
One of the points that you've made in the parenting class is if you do get to a situation where you either A, weren't able to prep them, or you're human and you didn't prep them and you put them in an environment that wasn't fair for them to succeed in, then we don't hold the child to the standard that they have not learned how to meet yet.
That's
so good.
So very simply, it would be, it's 9:00 at night. Everyone is tired. they're hungry, like whatever it is. We keep that, we go to bed at 7:30. So if it's 9 o'clock and we chose to do that, then there's grace in that moment to not expect.
Absolutely.
Really good.
Expect the best out of someone
Right,
at that
right.
time.
And owning it as a parent.
Yes.
You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
like I could have done better, or
and
we couldn't have
trusting
gotten around
each
it.
other
Yeah.
in those moments.
Gotta
I
let
think,
those things go.
again, one of the best gifts I think we're giving our children is being completely aligned in how we're parenting. So for our kids, no matter which parent they're with and which
Yeah.
scenario, A equals B, and A is always going to equal
So
B,
good.
and like they never have
The
to
same
guess.
standard,
Right.
regardless of which parent they're interacting
Right,
with. Yeah.
exactly. And so that there's a level of trust, though, a lot of trust between Jordan and I to just look across, hey, not good time. Like that was on us. Okay. And we're able to own it in the moment because you have to trust each other that, or if in a moment of conflict with your child and you have to trust your spouse to give you pause in that moment. Like, hey, why don't you tap out? Like trust your spouse to have your back.
That's good.
In that. And our kids, I think, understand like it's mom and dad first. Like we put each other first. They see that, and so that they can then trust, like again, going back to the leadership of us. But yeah, and also just one more thing I wanted to say was something that's really hard to do is encourage your child in moments of non-conflict. So when they're doing something well that you haven't even verbally prepped them for, but hey, some of the stuff you've been teaching them is starting to catch on and they're just doing it now on their own. You
Go
remember,
crazy.
you go crazy.
Lose your mind.
You celebrate,
Yes.
you reward up the wazoo, and you get super excited about it. I mean, even now, my children know how to go through a grocery store and check out, and we can be on our way out of the store, and I have done no verbal prep anymore. We just know how to do it, and I still, every single time, go Team Kimball, that was awesome. I'm so proud of you guys.
good.
Like, do you see like how
High
that
fiving
old
on the way
lady,
to the
we
car.
just like lots of praise because for the simplest thing like grocery
Yes,
shopping.
yes.
But they know that like mom was paying attention. Mom noticed when I was good. She doesn't just notice when I'm doing something off. She sees me when I'm doing, when I am doing what I'm expected to be doing. That's what matters.
Let me just throw this in too before I forget. All the things that we're talking about today are applicable for, I would use the word typical kids.
Yeah.
Meaning that you have a child that doesn't have some type of diagnosable behavioral deficiency. Some children might be on the spectrum, right? You can have children that have certain physical challenges, right? And so those are all different conversations for another time and completely different strategies.
Yes, absolutely.
Right, so I just want to throw that out, right?
Yep.
That we're, if your child's on the spectrum, we're not saying take all of these concepts and immediately apply them in their home, because that's not going to be what's in your child's best interest, right? And so, anyways, I just wanted to throw that out before we forget. I meant to open with that.
Yeah, no, I meant to say that at the beginning too. That's good. Discipline, I think, to summarize discipline with encouragement, I think it's ultimately what God does for us, right? Is He speaks over us and to us truth about maybe truths about who we're not there yet, who we're called to be, who we're meant to be, what we're capable of. And it brings boundaries to us. It brings life to us, right? It buoys us and it calls us to another standard. And I think that that's what discipline with encouragement does in our homes, is it does that for our children. And there's no replacement for that. There's no replacement for it.
All right, let's do the last one. Let's talk about the moral warehouse that you have to build in your child's heart, or the material we use talks about giving your child a moral reason why. So talk to us, kind of set us up for that conversation about what, when we talk about building a moral warehouse in the heart of a child, what are we talking about building?
Right. So a moral warehouse would be a reference to kind of the mechanism of the conscience and how the conscience decisions on things. And the idea is that we all have a warehouse. We're all born with a warehouse. And if you think of a big empty shell of a warehouse that's lined with shelving, and those shelves are made to carry values.
Costco.
Yeah, exactly. They're, values and
virtues.
virtues, these things that we hold dear, that we learn in our families, we learn in our communities, our parents are teaching us. And so this idea of parents being responsible to equip their children with values to then put on the shelf of the warehouse, so that when the child is away from them, older or away from the parent in a different context, they don't have to be in the exact same context to understand the value, because they've taken that value as their own and they've put it in their warehouse, and then in a different time and space, they can then go into the warehouse and decision and pull a value out that's applicable in a completely different context, but the value holds true, which is why you have children who can make better choices at 7, 8, 9, 10 years old than children who've just been told what to do for the sake of outward compliance, rather than given the value of why they're supposed to do it. So one of the keys to building a moral warehouse is this pivot around 3 years old, where you begin to not just give your child an instruction, but you give your child an instruction with a moral reason why. Not so that they have to negotiate that reason, not that they question or argue that reason, but you're attaching something that begins to ground why you're asking them to do what you're still telling them to do it. You're still going to require obedience, but you're helping them begin to build this warehouse. Does that help? Is that a thorough description?
Yeah, because what we are responsible for as parents is to prepare our children as they become adults to conduct themselves in a way that is driven by internal values and internal virtue, and not external rules.
Right.
Right. We like practically you get on the highway, you don't drive 90 miles an hour. The reason why you don't do that can't be because I don't want to get caught and get a ticket, and my insurance is going to go up.
You didn't know that, did you?
I want to be a safe driver because I realize that my behavior can harm other people, right? And so now I'm valuing the sanctity of life. I'm valuing how my life affects other people, and so for too many children, it's one of the reasons why they go off to college. They grew up in a Christian home, and you're like, who is this child, right? They're the picture of the prodigal son, right? They've dove headlong into a life of debauchery. It's because they only ever complied out of fear of consequence, because an external rule was put on them instead of virtues and values being instilled in them, right? And so we would say your moral warehouse is both a combination of values and virtues. And so let me just read out of this booklet. Let me just give a list, right, of the 24 virtues that we teach at this church, good. Which you all have heard many times before. Right, this comes from the 5 great growth lists that we discovered in the New Testament. If you don't know what those are, you can get a copy of this. It's a free download on the website letspraxis.com, and so we'll put a banner up for that. But it's free. Authentic, content, hospitable, truthful, persevering, wise, hopeful, loving, joyful, peaceful, patient, kind, gentle, faithful, humble, grateful, merciful, honorable, principled, selfless, fervent, forgiving, believing, and self-control. Right? I mean,
is anyone tired?
I was like, do we have a song for that yet? Because we need a little,
we need a little
catchy
ditty for Kid Life.
We need a whole child's curriculum.
Okay.
Right, because and then this needs to become a part of our vocabulary in our home, because when we're talking to our children about their behavior, or about why you should do this or why you shouldn't have done that, if it's attached to a virtue, then teach them the virtue.
Yeah, use the word.
Use the word. Have this in your home that you can refer to it, right? And so now all of a sudden you are, you're going to your classmate's birthday party and you're bringing a gift, not because it's some societal expectation that you don't want to be the only kid in the party that doesn't bring a gift, right? You want to talk to your child about generosity, right? You want to talk to your child about honoring your friend, right? And so now all of a sudden behavior and conduct is flowing from within them and not being dictated to them by.
Right.
Now, it starts as external rules, right? But like Vanessa said, by the time they get to be 3, right, 3 or 4, you should really be attaching virtues and values. And again, we're going to say those virtues are character traits. And then I would say values are like we value marriage, we value parenting, we value the sanctity of life, we value work ethic, we value citizenship, right? And so we value learning, right? Those are all values. And so your child's heart is this beautiful combination of virtues and values that you're constantly building inside of them. And if they aren't in you, then you cannot put them in them, right? And so this is, we save this one for last because part of parenting is that you have to become a better person if you want to be a better parent.
Yes. And there's nothing like parenting to turn the mirror back on yourself with your children.
Marriage and parenting.
Wow, that's me. That's me.
Yeah.
That's me right there. It's a really eye-opening experience, especially like one of my children, we joke, is just like a copy and paste of me.
Yeah.
And so I see so much of myself in this child that it really does make me reflect on what am I giving to her or to them as a whole, for sure.
Yeah.
I was thinking about like one of the virtues of self-control. That's like an easy one when they're little and you're trying to teach them like, not to flail in the cart because it's not safe or all those things. Well, recently I've been teaching my oldest child self-control with her food. Now I don't really need to control her overeating, but she's learning now that she can be in control of what's on her plate because she's 10 and she has the ability to do that. And even today she said, how many of these things can I have? And I said, you're 10, you get to decide when your belly is gonna hurt or not.
That's really good.
And letting them fail is an important part of learning. And so these are things where I'm like, I know you should have stopped 2 pieces ago, but you kept going. Now your belly hurts. How did that make you feel? So you can apply that to many different things. But letting your child fail, I think, is one of the best gifts you can give to your children in a safe way, right? But so that they can learn from their mistakes. Yeah.
That's good. And you're already, like you were saying, your oldest 1 or 2 are starting to step out of your home.
Yes.
How do you, I know you guys have worked hard in establishing a moral warehouse, giving a moral reason why for a lot of years. How do you feel now that they're starting to take those steps out as far as how they're going to behave when you're not in the room watching? Has it given you a confidence? Do you feel like you see gaps? I mean, all of the above.
Oh, absolutely. I see gaps.
It's true. I would see gaps all the time with my kids. I'm like, we can do better.
I think,
we didn't just touch on that.
I won't be this person to you because I never liked it when people were like, oh, you thought 3 was hard. Wait till you get to 5.
Yeah, we never wanted to be that.
But those people are right. I was, and I'm like,
so great.
it just got
great.
The difficulty now as they're getting older and trying to get to
their heart.
And get through all of that other stuff.
Yeah.
Realizing that we need to find those intimate, quiet, personal, one-on-one moments.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time for some of the kids in our house. It takes a long time for them to let us in, to figure out why is it that you're showing me this? You don't have this character trait in your moral warehouse yet. And how do I help you? How do I help get that into your warehouse before it's too late? But I think the good news is that there's grace and that there's time.
Yes, lots of
and
grace.
that they are still 6, 8, and 10.
Lots of time.
Don't read the books that tell you it's all formed by 6 years old or something like that.
Yeah. So I think you're prompting of, where's the gaps? Yes, I see the gaps, and the best encouragement I give to myself is that just me caring enough to figure this out is enough for God to use to help
Yeah.
fill in the
Yes,
gaps that I can't
absolutely.
figure out.
The
So-
first 3 to 4 years is giving them a sense of familiarity with the boundaries and the rules of life that matter to you. No, then I would say, then you begin to teach them why those are the rules that matter to you. Right? Early on, it's this is the rule and this is what you're going to do. Right? And when my child is 1 year old, I'm not giving them the moral reason why or trying to attach a virtue in them. Right? It's about establishing my authority in their life. Right? It's about leadership. Right? But then at some point, you have to pivot away from that, right? And you have to begin, you don't negotiate the rules, but you want them to understand why these rules matter. And it can't just be all through adolescence because I told you so, right? Because then you've not done the hard work of shaping your child's heart. You know, your goal is not to control your child. Your goal is to raise your child, right? So.
And I think go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jamal.
I was gonna say, I think for me, obviously, we're getting to the point where, you know, we've had the conversation or like, okay, I know she is too, but like she's doing all of the things that like, oh, maybe we need to implement this sooner. She's ahead of the game. Just with the vibes. So we've been like trying to figure out how to catch up almost to some of this. But in that, to your point of like the mirror, it's like almost I've kind of realized that I definitely had, you know, to kind of build on that metaphor, like I had morals in my warehouse, but I don't know if I always had like directions to get them. Cause a lot of, you know, just in the culture I grew up in, a lot of it was like metaphorical or like statements, you know, so it was like a saying that somebody would always say, and you knew what that meant.
Yeah.
Like you knew what the saying meant, but like, you know, as I got older, you know, it was like, you know, it was always like, don't touch something you can't pay for. You know what I mean? All right, cool. Well, I can't pay for none of this, so I ain't touching none of this. You know, and it lasted up to a certain point, right? But then you get to the point where, oh, I actually like make a substantial income, as you know, we're able to provide a house for the family and so on and so forth. Okay, well, what does like, what does that mean to like? So now I'm like,
now I can pay for it. What does it actually?
Yeah. What does that mean? You know, so it's like, you know, so it's like one of those things where, as an adult, I understood these morals, but I didn't have the context.
Now he just touches everything as he's going through the store.
No, I was just joking. But yeah, right. But it was one of those things where I'm like, so now we're like learning like, oh, what that point means, because you know, in the explanations of building that moral warehouse, of like having a conversation, like even though the metaphors and the taglines were super effective, like they got the result. I think I struggled a little bit as an adult trying to figure out how to interpret those morals, because I had the catchphrase, I didn't necessarily have the explanation.
That's
so
good.
now
That's
I know
really
like
good, Jamal.
why I do. So I think that's one of the things we've been trying to figure out within ourselves.
I was going to say, you probably have
yeah.
some great conversations.
Yeah, definitely.
Because of that. And I think that is awesome for every marriage, because sometimes you have everybody has different upbringings than their spouse.
Yeah.
And depending on how different, you know, those are really meaningful foundation-laying conversations that if you don't think through this, you might skip over.
Yeah.
And it creates inconsistency in your home without even meaning to.
And just creating space. Like, I mean, I shared this before. Like, I remember I had been waiting for the moment where Cleo said mine, so I could be like, girl, you ain't pay for nothing in this house. This is ours. Girl, I've been waiting years to pull this card. But she was talking to Madeline at the time. So when she pulled a mine, Madeline, I was like, whew. And Madeline was like, now, Cleo, everything belongs to God. So like, you know, and I was like.
You had to throw your card away.
Yeah, God, this is God's house. Everything belongs to God, girl. Like if I'm saying, I was gonna say that. But it was one of those things where it was like, oh, I had the catchphrase loaded, but like that catchphrase doesn't, it might get a response out of her, but it doesn't teach her how to access that moral. So it's been interesting, like, and we had a conversation about that and like talked about like, oh, maybe there are other things we may want to talk about, like how do we discipline? Like how do we, what words or what do we put in on the screen? Like what do we feel comfortable with in certain like family situations? Our family is pretty diverse from like each of the 4 arms that make us up are very different families. So like how do we set Cleo up for success to like go to my family on my dad's side, to her family on her mom's side, to like, because there are different environments that we have to prepare for because of that.
Ultimately, building a moral warehouse equips your child, equips you to capture the heart of your child.
Exactly.
Rather than just instill extrinsic, right? Controls from the outside. And it creates a child that captures your values over time and makes it their own so that they can then walk out into the world, with values.
And too many people think that they built a moral warehouse because they think of morals as rules.
Yeah.
But what we're saying is that's not what a moral warehouse is. A moral warehouse is not a master list of do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
A moral warehouse is a master list of values and virtues that guide you so that you can discern what you should do and what you shouldn't do.
And I think it's always changing and growing your whole life. We still have conversations with our young adult kids about how to think about things. How do these values that we hold, that you hold now as an adult?
When you say changing, the value doesn't change,
no, the value doesn't
but
change.
how it applies
how
to
it
them.
applies to life, right? Life continues to grow. I feel like we're in our 50s still. I've never been 51 before. You know what I mean? You've never been here, so I just think this is a really, it's so important in parenting, but also we can model for our kids that we have these timeless principles, these timeless values and virtues, but how they apply in the life that God's put us in, we continue to learn and grow our whole life.
It's good.
So.
Closing thoughts. If you had one thing that you could leave people with, what would it be?
This is all worth it.
Preach, sister.
This is worth it. Intentional parenting is worth it.
Yeah.
So good.
And rewarding. Like, to get to the conversations we're having now with our older daughters, it's really rewarding knowing we put in that work, when they were little. And I'm seeing, you see the fruit of it pretty quickly. Like you don't have to wait for them to be 18 to see the fruit of of the effort you're putting in. So it's worth it.
Yeah. To do it right is to just be intentional and to want to do it right.
That's enough. God will honor that. That's
and
good.
God will fill in all the gaps that you're not capable of.
Good. Yep. God's not looking for perfection. That's good.
Leave that, Jordan, man. Whew. I would say to, just as we were having this whole conversation, like all of this is based on God's word and what we feel like God has taught, us about parenting, right? And so, I would just say to not allow what you see presented in the world to pressure you to feel like you have to parent in a way that is not biblical. Yeah,
that's really good. Swim upstream.
Yeah, I think I would say for me, in all honesty, I think like God loves your child more than you do. Mm-hmm. Like I think that always whenever I feel like, I'm hitting a point where I'm like, oh, like what are we going to do next? Or how do we navigate this? Or this is happening in our family. How is this going to impact us? I just remember how God had his hand on me when I was, when my mom was doing her best and my family were doing their best, and how I still found my way, and that like God's timing is God's timing, but He also is chasing after your child and like has your child's interests even more deeply woven in His heart than you do. So like that, that generally gives me the peace to like, to Jordan's point, be intentional and just like pick it up for where I'm at and not think about what I might have.
Good. Well, thank you all.
So good. Thank you
for
guys
sharing
so much.
Your evening with us and sharing your
wisdom,
your experience, right? As parents, as spouses, and I know that everyone that's that's watching feels enriched by you opening up your life. And so if you've got questions about the parenting class that we keep talking about, we're easy to find, we're easy to get a hold of here at the City Life Church. We'd love for you to be a part of that class. And then if you, just have questions, we're going to put the Kimballs and the Harrises phone numbers. We're going to scroll on the bottom of the screen.
Their Instagram, their Facebook, their...
No, I say that in jest, because I say that to say this, is that you will not be successful as a parent by yourself.
Yep, you're in it together.
You will not. You will. I'm not going to go as far to say that you'll fail, but you'll be less of a parent.
Yep.
If you don't have a community of faith that is Christ-centered, that you're constantly turning back into to look for guidance, and you have a responsibility to help others. And so you will be less of a parent if you don't drink from the wisdom of others, and then you will be less of a person if you don't in turn share that wisdom as you grow older in life. This is part of what Christian community is supposed to be like. So it doesn't have to be City Life Church, but if you live in the 757, there are a lot of great churches here. You find one, and because building the church is also a value that should be established in your home. And I'll leave you with that. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining us for another Fifth Saturday, both at the opportunities to serve this morning and here online for service. But before you log off, a reminder, worshiping online doesn't have to be a Fifth Saturday only experience. You can like and subscribe and turn on notifications for the City Life YouTube page at the link on the screen, where there are sermon series, worship sets, full services, and playlists of the songs we sing on Saturdays. Your worship doesn't have to be exclusive to the weekend. And to keep up with all the opportunities to come together, follow us on Instagram and Facebook at City Life Newport News. But as we go, I pray the Lord bless and keep you until we come together back in person next week.